Hey folks, welcome back. Chris Good here, and I know it's been a long time, but it is about time that we finished up this tutorial on building electric guitars in Fusion 360, along with the machining on the Decatur Maker's CNC. Now, up to this point, we had been working on the neck for a Fender type of guitar that was a Telecaster, and now you're looking at this saying this, wait a minute, hang on a second, that does not look like a Tele Headstock, that looks more like a Fender Mustang. And indeed, I've moved on to working on something a little bit like that. So here's the body of that Mustang, but everything that we're going to talk about in this video continues on from the previous video that we've been doing before. So don't worry about changing the size or anything. All the principles in here are going to work to complete your Telecaster style neck same way. So I'm in the neck. It's its own component. I've activated the component. We're seeing the sketch of the neck, and you just saw the little shadow of a canvas that I used, and I've traced the outline of this headstock that I want in a sketch, and I've traced the rest of the neck in the sketch as well. And we have created a body that is the loft between the neck profile sketches that you see right here. The heel we covered in the previous video, and so when we get to machining, that will be there in the final thing. But this video is going to focus on that neck to headstock transition that has troubled so many people designing their own electric guitars in Fusion 360. All of the stuff I'm about to share with you I stole shamelessly from Brad Jr. over at his website, Brad Anderson, who has done just an amazing tutorial on how to make this transition as effortless as possible. So watch that video. I'll link to it in the notes, and here's my take on it. So we're going to start by doing a little extrusion of this. We're going to go down 0.75 inches, and we want to make sure that's in the negative direction. Down 0.75 inches, and the bottom of the headstock here is going to end up in the same plane as the bottom of the heel. That's just what we're working with. Don't worry that this is not doesn't have that scoop like you normally see. We're going to get there. Right now, let's focus on the transition between this part here and this part here. Now you'll notice that I made a little diagonal line right across here. It's at a somewhat arbitrary location, and the shape of the transition is going to change along with the angle of this line. But I'm just eyeballing it and doing it like that. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to loft between these 2 points. If we did it right now, we'd get something that looks like this, which you could actually work with and sand when you're done carving it, and that would be fine. But I think it goes a little bit faster if you spend a bit of time shaping the transition here. So let's get to work on that. The first thing that we're going to do, and again, thanks to Brad for making this as simple as possible. So we're going to create a sketch in the plane of that little shape right there. And what we're going to do, I'm going to take 3D Sketch off just for now. We'll come back to that. We're going to make a spline. It starts in this corner, goes to the midpoint. There's that little triangle, and then goes to this corner. And we're done. We're going to delete this coincident that locks it to the midpoint, because we're going to want to take this point and shift it down about an inch. It's about -1 inch. All right. I'm going to fiddle with the curves geometry just a little bit. Make this handle vertical. This one goes vertical. This one goes horizontal. If you really want to, you can make these things equal to each other so you get a nice curve. We're done. That's it. Now make sure that you can highlight that and that as a continuous surface. Great. Okay, we're done with that sketch. Let's view that sketch that we were on before. I want to make a new sketch. This one Plane doesn't really matter because this is actually going to be a 3D sketch. So we're just going to check that box. We're going to make another spline. Same principle. We're going to go to the halfway point right there. And go to that dot right there. Check the box. Delete that coincident. And same deal. We're going to go do the same thing that we did over here. We're going to move this down about an inch. We're going to straighten out these handles. Make them vertical. Same deal. Make that one horizontal. Now, you can tweak it a little bit further, make them equal. You can change the shape of it depending on what you want your thing to look like. I'm going to stop messing with it. Oh, except for the fact that, see how I can select this one, but I can't select this one for some reason? I don't know why that is exactly. So I can right now, right before I made that thing horizontal. That's odd. Let me hide the old sketch I was working on, get it out of the way. Yeah? Okay. You know what? I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave it not horizontal and not apply a constraint to it, just because I'm going to need it like that in order to do this loft. Okay. We're done with that sketch. Actually, you know what? I don't think we need to do a new sketch in order to get us... I love getting lost in Fusion. Okay, I'm done. Where's my home button? Crazy. Okay. Weird. Usually when you mouse over this area, you get a nice home button. I do want one more sketch element in here. And it looks like this. It's a 3D sketch, and it's going to start... It's going to be a line that starts at the top center of here. I really do want it to be like right in the middle. Yeah. You know what? Let's do it in another sketch. Let's create a new sketch. And again, it kind of doesn't matter what the plane is because it's a 3D sketch. We want a line. It goes from there all the way to the center of the other part of the neck. There we go. And now we're going to do this. We're going to make a spline that connects these 3 points. This one, and that one that we just made. And then we're going to make this line tangent to the line that we just made. You see how that flattens out the curve? So it's just like a little jet taking off. Woo! Nice. And we can still select that. The only other thing that we're going to add to this, and I'm going to make yet another sketch, and just the important part about this is that when you're making all these sketches, that you're connecting all of these things. So let me be in this plane. This is a 2D sketch, or maybe it should be 3D. Here's what I want to do. I want to make a spline that goes... Oh, my square is totally not working. That's weird. I'm going to make a spline that connects all of these points. That's one. And then another one that does these. I'm going to just tweak it so that it mirrors the curve here. Right? Like that. Straight. You're going to sand this so it's okay if it's not like anchored. And I know that Fusion 360 folks are going to be like, oh, that is so sloppy. It is actually. It's a little sloppy. But I want you guys to get the principle of this loft transition that we're about to make. Okay? Alright. That's close enough there, and I want this to be on that curve. The most important part about this is that these points are exactly sharing the same point. They've got to be coincident with each other. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Where's my handle? Oh. Do you ever watch these and try to rotate your YouTube video? I'm doing that all the time now. Like, no, that actually isn't in Fusion. It's on YouTube. All right. Okay. These two splines that I've drawn, this one and this one, are going to be the Loft Rails. And if you don't have these two splines that are one continuous spline going from this point all the way to this point, the rails aren't going to work. And they might not work this time. They seem to be really capricious, but we'll see about that. Okay. Let's turn the bodies back on so I can see these 2 points. Now we're ready to do our loft. We're going to do a loft not in the surface. Uh-oh. I just noticed something. Look at that. I need to fix that because it needs to be this point needs to be intersecting this one. Let's just do this. Let's delete these. And now that I can see this point, I think what I'll do is delete, okay. Let's try this. Now that I can see this point, let's make a line from this point to this point. I think I had the bodies maybe invisible before. And now that we've done that, now we can create our spline. Connecting those 3 points. That's good. All right. Now, make this one tangent with this line, because that's going to be a rail too. And that's the most crucial part about rails, is that if you're going to connect these profiles with a loft to each other, we're actually going to do this one too. If we're going to loft through all of those points, we can't use rails that aren't touching the edges of them exactly. And you'll throw an error that sometimes it's very hard to track down the source of the error. So let's do the loft first and see what we get. So we're on the right track, but you'll notice that it's not really following. It's making up its own curve. And that's where this little arrow comes in that says rails. And oh, if you've struggled with rails like I've struggled with rails, well, let's see if it works first. This spline that we drew is going to be our first rail. And see how that just snapped the loft to it? We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to add a rail. All right, I'm a little disoriented. Where's my rail? Ah. There we go. And now the last rail that we're going to use is this one. Okay. Let's zoom out just a little tiny bit. See what we've got here? We're connecting all these 3 profiles, right? And then we've snapped the loft to those rails. Let me close this out so you can see what we've made. Fantastic. And only one problem. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to do this one more time. One, so you can see it, and two, because we didn't make a new body. We joined. And that's not what we wanted to do. So there. 1, 2, 3, plus this one. Loft. Rails. We're select that spline, and this spline, and this spline. And we want to make sure that we choose new body. And the reason is that I don't want to fuse all three of these bodies together. I want it to be its own body, this new body that we just made. Look at that. That is so beautiful. All right, here's the trick. We're going to take that new body and we're going to split it. Oops, not that. We're going to take this body number 8. We're going to split that body with this surface of the back of the headstock. And once that's gone, look at that. Look at that transition. Hide those sketches just for a moment so we can admire what we've done. That's starting to look like the transition from the neck to the headstock of a Fender guitar. Now, I know that doesn't have like this totally edgy thing, and you're going to sand that down a little bit, but isn't that much better than the first loft that we tried? Okay, last thing. You guys know that there's this slope that goes down there. What happens if can I find the fretboard maybe and put the fretboard back on? All right, there's where our fretboard's going to be. And we don't really, Fender guitars don't have that abrupt change there. And this surface here is actually lower down than it is. I'm going to leave that fretboard body visible. And I'm actually going to put some strings on here so I can see sort of where I'm at. All right. Hey, my square came back. My cube. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a new sketch in the plane of this thing. And I want to make a circle that's about 1.25 inches in diameter or so. Just like that. I think I might want to move it up just a titch. Let's move it this way a little bit. That's probably pretty good. And again, you'll want to measure to make sure that you're getting the exact measurement that you want. I want to make a line that's tangent to this circle, right? And 90 degrees out that way. And I want it to go off the edge. Let me do this. Undo that line. Tangent to the circle, and it goes just somewhere past the headstock. Okay. Really what we want is a rectangle. Let's do that. We'll make a rectangle tangent to the circle that extends out beyond the headstock. I'm going to make it the diameter, same as the diameter, 1.25. Here. Boy, I'd like to make that rectangle coincident with this thing. It is it? I guess that's close enough. Now, I want to take the rectangle and the circle and this part, and we'll rotate this. So we're going to rotate all of those things around this axis. 90 degrees. So see how we're flipping that up? 90 degrees. And now, make sure we can still select that. Now we're going to extrude in both directions. So instead of going to one side, we're going to do it to two sides, right? And just make sure it goes off the edge there, off the edge there. Don't want to join. This is a new body. Now here's what. I'm going to take this whole new body that we just made, body 10. We're going to do a move. I'm going to go down negative 0.25 inches. Now again, this is just to show you what the concept looks like, and I want you guys to measure. You see how I've got the fretboard there? I want to bring this over to where it's intersecting that. Let's look at it straight on. All right, there we go. That looks more like the Fender Headstock. Before you commit to anything, you'll want to inspect, the distance between here and here. And it should be about a ½ inch because the whole thing was 0.75, and we brought this surface down a ¼ inch. Now we're just going to do a join where it's a cut operation, right? And we're cutting target body. Ooh, I got to join those two things. Sorry about that. Let's join 7 and 8 because we're cutting into both of them. And then that body becomes the target for a combine operation, and our body 10 becomes the tool. Don't join, but cut. All right. There it is. Okay. Now again, you could probably work this and sand it down and use hand tools on it, but it's not too hard to do a flip milling operation where first we're going to cut this side. Oh, and we have to anyway because we need a hole for the truss rod as well, right? And all that is just a path that goes the depth of the truss rod. And since you're cutting this side anyway, why not go ahead and scoop this out? It doesn't really take that long. And then we'll flip it over and do a tool path for cutting out the other side. That's going to be in the next and the last video in this series. Thanks for coming over. Subscribe if you like, and we will see you next time.